Warning: the following video contains explicit language, which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Are you ready?
Hey everybody, it's Jeff. So I hope everybody's doing okay today. It's been raining here all day, and the snow that we had mostly is gone. And just, I mean, this morning when I got up, it was snow, you know, about an inch thick on the ground, and slushy everywhere else. And it's almost 6 o'clock, and the snow is pretty much gone from just rain. And it hasn't been raining hard. I mean, the temperature is kind of warm too. So we're getting a warm front moving in, and that's why we got rain today. But we didn't get the partly sunny skies that they said we were going to get. You know, fucking weathermen. So anyway, yeah, that's the way it is here. My neighbors there seemed to get a lot of packages. Christ, I opened the door and I couldn't open all the way. There was boxes outside on the fucking stoop there. I was like, big boxes. So I had to bring them in because they weren't here. They work odd hours, so they weren't home. So I had to push the damn boxes near the doorway on the porch here so they can get to it. I didn't want to leave them outside where it's raining. The damn things would get ruined. Whatever it is that they got, you know, they're gonna get all soaking wet. You shouldn't do that. Anyway, I got a video here that talks about the Tennessee ban on transgender health care, which is causing, you know, considerable grief, as you can imagine, to people there. And the fact that, hey, you know what? They want this to be a national ban as well. I mean, you know, here we go with them saying, oh, we hate big government, but yet they're making big government do all these things for them that they want to see done on people's personal life. So let's go to the video, and then I got something to read here on the other side of that here, so let's go to that.
There's a Supreme Court case on trans healthcare that I wanted to talk about here. And right-wing ghouls like Matt Walsh, he was given a speech in front of the Supreme Court in support of restricting trans healthcare. So here's what they say in the Hill. Supreme Court leans toward upholding Tennessee's restrictions on gender-affirming care. So let me walk you through this here. The Supreme Court's conservatives appeared to lean toward upholding Tennessee's ban on gender-affirming care for minors in a blockbuster showdown over transgender rights Wednesday. Over 2.5 hours of argument, several conservative justices questioned the Biden administration's assertion of overwhelming evidence that the benefits of giving some adolescents experiencing gender dysphoria puberty blockers and hormone treatments outweighs the risks. Quote, I wonder if you would like to stand by this statement or if you think it would now be appropriate to modify that and withdraw the statement, said Justice Alito, repeatedly referencing several European countries that have recently moved to restrict some gender-affirming care. Quote, if it's evolving like that and changing and England is pulling back and Sweden is pulling back, it strikes me as a pretty heavy yellow light, if not red light, for this court to come in, the 9 of us, and constitutionalize the whole area, Justice Brett Kavanaugh similarly noted. By the way, can I just point out, I love this, that it looks like the U.S. political establishment found one way in which they would like to copy Europe, namely being more anti-trans. They never say they want to copy Europe when it comes to more paid vacation time or more paid maternity leave or paternity leave or paid sick time. They never say they want to copy Europe when it comes to universal health care. It's only like, hey, restricting trans healthcare? Yeah. Oh, bro, Europe. Well, look at Europe, bro. We need to follow the model, bro. Europe. They never say Europe ever when it comes to raising wages, helping workers out more, being more of a social democracy and less capitalist. Never would they. Okay, let's continue. Opponents of U.S. laws banning gender-affirming care for trans youth have said prohibitions imposed by Republican-led states go much further than European policies, which limit but do not categorically ban care. Oh, that's interesting. So in other words, even saying, oh, we should copy Europe on this. Okay, well, this Tennessee law is way more restrictive than European laws. Quote, this is no ordinary medical regulation. Pratik Shah, head of Supreme Court and appellate practice at Aiken Gump, nice name, said of Tennessee's law. Tennessee's law SB 1 prohibits medical providers from administering puberty blockers or hormone treatments for the purpose of enabling a transgender minor to live consistent with their gender identity. So in other words, guys, this is not just a law that says, you know what, for minors, let's not do any like bottom surgeries. Let's reel it in a little bit. This is a law that bans medical providers from even issuing puberty blockers or hormone treatments. Wow, that is wide-ranging. It's like, in other words, you can get no gender-affirming care if you're a minor, according to this law. The law also bans gender-affirming surgeries, though that provision is not at issue before the high court. See, again, that's interesting. So I bet you conservatives will pretend like what's at issue here is surgeries for minors, when that is literally not what they're debating. They're debating whether or not puberty blockers or hormone treatments can be given to any trans youth. Providers who violate the law can face $25,000 civil fines. The administration's challenge of Tennessee's restrictions stands to impact similar laws passed in roughly half the country. In other words, the Republican states, to the surprise of nobody, they're all cracking down on trans healthcare. And if the Supreme Court rules against, allowing doctors to provide trans healthcare to minors, then this could be the case in half the states or even more than half the states, setting up a high-stakes battle that has attracted national attention and demonstrations outside the courthouse Wednesday. The dispute comes as Republicans increasingly lean into anti-transgender messaging, with millions spent on related campaign ads this cycle, and a blitz of recent legislation restricting the bathrooms transgender Americans use, sports teams they join, and medical care they receive. At the heart of the current battle is what level of scrutiny the law should receive. The Biden administration asserts Tennessee's ban should be treated as a form of sex discrimination. For decades, the court has subjected such cases to intermediate scrutiny, which requires the government to show the law is substantially related to an important interest. SB 1 regulates by drawing sex-based lines and declares that those lines are designed to encourage minors to appreciate their sex. What the fuck does that mean? U.S. Solicitor General Elizabeth Prelogar said, Tennessee said its law classifies by medical purpose, not sex, so it only needs to clear a lower level of scrutiny known as rational basis review. Just as using morphine to manage pain differs from using it to assist suicide, using hormones and puberty blockers to address a physical condition is far different from using it to address psychological distress associated with one's body. See, to me, when you read that, and read that over and over again, and tell me what your takeaway is, when I read that, it sounds like what they're saying is being trans is not actually a thing. In other words, living in extreme mental, psychological distress because your gender doesn't match your gender doesn't match your gender identity, or your sex doesn't match your gender identity. They say, well, that's sort of like an opinion thing and a feeling thing, and it's not real ironclad medical stuff. So therefore, we should make a law against giving trans healthcare to any minors, even just hormones and puberty blockers. See, again, at the core of the right-wing belief on this, it literally is just that I don't think trans people are a real thing. Like, I don't think it's a real thing. And for the life of me, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around that argument, because there was a time back in the day where people said about gay people, I just don't think anybody's actually gay. It's almost like, okay, even if you like the same sex to one extent or another, suck it up and marry the opposite sex, because society shouldn't accept this, right? That's sort of like the idea. And it's a similar notion here. It's like, they can't wrap their minds around the fact that some people are born biologically one sex, but effectively have the mind of the opposite, and they want to live that reality and want to live that truth. Imagine how big and authoritarian a government you have to create to say you're not allowed to do that. And I'm going to give you numbers in a second, by the way, just so you understand what we're talking about here. Why isn't this simply a case of age classification? Conservative Justice Clarence Thomas pressed the government, sympathizing with Tennessee's position. LGBTQ advocates are holding out hope for a repeat surprise victory at the conservative majority Supreme Court after Justice Neil Gorsuch, President-elect Trump's first appointee, wrote the court's majority opinion in 2020, ruling that an employer firing someone based on their sexual orientation or gender identity violates Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The Biden administration insists the same reasoning applies to the Equal Protection Clause, and Tennessee's gender-affirming care ban should be invalidated. But during Wednesday's arguments, Gorsuch didn't ask a single question. He spent most of the time reading documents or holding a pen to his chin as he listened to the attorneys. The court's liberals, meanwhile, sympathized with the Biden administration's citation of major medical organizations that consider gender-affirming care safe and medically necessary. Quote, "The evidence is very clear that there are some children who actually need this treatment, isn't there?" Justice Sonia Sotomayor said. The Justice Department is challenging the law alongside 3 transgender adolescents in the state, their parents, and a Tennessee doctor who treats gender dysphoria. The case's high stakes have attracted significant attention, with dozens of outside groups filing briefs backing each side. The Justice Department's challenge drew support from Democratic attorneys general in 19 states and Washington, D.C., various LGBTQ advocacy groups, 164 Democratic lawmakers, Representative-elect Sarah McBride, who is said to become the first openly trans member of Congress, actor Elliot Page, and the American Bar Association. Tennessee officials are backed by 25 Republican state attorneys general, various conservative legal groups, the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, and dozens of athletes who oppose transgender women competing in women's competition, including former swimmer Riley Gaines and former tennis star Martina Navratilova. Competing rallies, one organized by conservative organizations including the Alliance Defending Freedom and Do No Harm, and one held by the American Civil Liberties Union and Lambda Legal, drew upwards of 1,000 people outside the court Wednesday. All right, so we're going to... Let's get to that now. So we have video from one of these rallies. So there were protesters and counter-protesters, people on the side of trans people and people who are in favor of banning trans healthcare for all minors. And here's Matt Walsh speaking at this event. And listen closely to what he says here, because he really gives away the game.
So to the trans activists over there claiming this is all about the rights of children, I say again, yes, you're right, it is. They have a right to be protected from you. Children have a right to be protected from all of those people over there who want to harm them and damage them and destroy them.
So in other words, he's saying kids who are trans, they're only becoming trans because it's a fad, and there's like trans rights groups that are tricking kids into wrongly becoming trans. That's what Matt Walsh is saying.
And they will be. They are going to lose. They are losing right now. We are not going to let them harm our children. This case is just the beginning of the fight. It is not the end. We are not going to rest until every child is protected, until trans ideology is entirely erased from the earth. That's what we're fighting for, and we will not stop until we achieve it.
He's not going to stop until trans ideology is totally erased from the earth. As I said, he doesn't think trans people are real. He doesn't think they're real. What he thinks is they're falling for a fad and going along with it wrongly, or they're complete degenerates, and he thinks they should be forced into a box of whatever your biological sex is when you're born. You have a duty to fulfill that throughout your life. That's his point. That's what he's saying. He wants to erase gender ideology from the earth, which is his way of saying, we don't think anybody should be trans. I mean, look, he openly said, we covered it at the time, he openly said it should be illegal for doctors to perform any sort of transgender affirming care. It should be illegal for them at any age. So even if it's an adult, he really is not in favor of them being trans. This is what he said. This is what he said. So look, here's the reality of the situation, and should be the least controversial thing anybody said ever. There are plenty of instances of you have a kid, and the kid says, you know, hey, I feel like a boy or I feel like a girl or whatever, and they want to live that reality, and the parents sort of, work with them and try to help them and try to walk them through it and try to understand where the kid is coming from, and then you have, okay, well, let's see whatever process there is out there. You go talk to a therapist or a psychiatrist or some sort of a doctor, and you try to evaluate, hey, is this kid actually experiencing gender dysphoria? How severe is the gender dysphoria, etc.? And in those instances, there are some kids that will get treatment. Now, in every case, the treatment is either hormones or puberty blockers. They actually don't do bottom surgery until they're past a certain age. I don't know exactly what the age is, 16 or something like that. But in almost all the cases, it is just hormones or puberty blockers, and you have the approval of the parents as well as some doctors who would have to sign off on it. That's how it works now. He wants big government to get in there and say to the doctor, no, you're not allowed to do this. Say to the therapist, no, you're not allowed to do this. Say to the parents, no, your kid's not allowed to do this. He wants massive authoritarian government overreach to get into people's lives and control their lives. Because he thinks, or he pretends, like in an instance where a kid is trans, it's really deranged, ideologically captured parents who are like forcing their kid into being trans, and that's evil and that's wrong. And look, it would be wrong if any parents are forcing their kid to be anything one way or the other way, just because their ideology fits. Of course that would be wrong, but I'm sure that almost never happens. Maybe you can find the one fringe tiny ass case of some weird parents that do some weird shit, of course, but I got news for you. Whether you're a liberal, a lefty, a right winger, whatever, nobody looks at their kids and says, I would like to make their life significantly more difficult. I would like for them to have to deal with all sorts of discrimination because, 99.9% of society doesn't know about or isn't comfortable with trans people. Like it's much harder for them to get jobs and hold down a job. They know how society broadly looks at them and how so many conservatives look at them like they're some sort of freak or they're some sort of degenerate or pervert or whatever. Nobody wants a harder road for their kid, right? In the same way, in 1985 or even today, it's like, does anybody let me try to make my kid gay? Like, no, it's like, if they are gay, okay, we love you. We're going to deal with it. We're going to work this out, etc. And it's the same thing for trans people. I'm actually reminded, funny enough, of a story Joe Rogan told about how his neighbor had a kid, and he knew the kid was gay from the first time he saw the kid, and the kid was pretty young, and Rogan was like, this kid's gay, right? He had a very gay affect to him. And it's just amazing to me so Rogan can acknowledge, look, some people are just gay. It just is what it is. It's no big deal. Some people are just gay. And he can acknowledge that about gay people, but a lot of these conservatives, when it comes to trans people, it's just, they feel like, no, that's not a thing, or it's like a fake thing, or it's like a fad. It's like, no, I hate to tell you, there are some percentage, it's very small, but some percentage of people, both young and older, are trans. It just is what it is, right? And there's no moral or ethical dimension to it. There's nothing to tut and wag your finger at and shame people over. It just is what it is, right? And so the other thing is, these people make it seem like, this is like this is happening all over the country. This is the whole Jordan Peterson bullshit argument about how, they're turning our children trans, and this butchery has to stop, and this is a massive problem, and they talk about it like it's some colossal thing that's happening. Meanwhile, I've showed you guys the numbers before. Look at this. Diagnosis of youths with gender dysphoria. In 2017, it was 15,000. Now it's about 42,000. But still, 42,000 kids out of, I think I crunched the numbers one time, and I think the number is, 7 million? Here, let me look it up right now. How many Americans are under the age of 16? 72.5 million. I thought 7 million. 72.5 million. I don't know where the hell I got 7 million from. But, so there's 72.5 million kids in this country under the age of 16. 42,000 have gender dysphoria. And some people look at this number go up from 2017 to 2021 and go, see, it's a fad. Or, just like with gay people, as time went by, people felt a little more comfortable basically coming out of the closet. And so there's been about this number that's always been trans, but now people are okay admitting it, right? And actually, I don't think it's going to stop here. I do think the number is going to go up, but I think it's going to go up because people are going to finally be more honest with themselves, right? And so whatever that percentage is, if it's 0.5% or whatever it is, there's some number out there, and it is what it is. But this number is so tiny, and they act like this is a huge problem. More. So how many of these 72.5 million kids in this country use puberty blockers? The number is 1,390. More. How many use hormone therapy? The number is 4,231 out of 72.5 million. So the idea that this is oh my God, bro, they're butchering our kids and this is killing a whole generation. By the way, like I said, they don't do bottom surgeries for kids. They don't. How many top surgeries have been done? 72.5 million kids. There's been 282 top surgeries. 282. This is a non-issue. These kids who end up getting gender-affirming care, whether it's the hormones or the puberty blockers or top surgery or whatever it is, these kids, 99% of the time, they genuinely have gender dysphoria. The family's dealing with it as best they can. The medical professionals are dealing with it the best they can. And some of them end up getting help. And a lot of those people who get this kind of help self-report being way better off as a result of it. And Matt Walsh and all these conservatives want to go in there and stop this treatment because they don't actually think it's treatment. They don't think it's treatment. They don't think it works. They think these are perverts and degenerates who have like a mind virus. That's what they think. And now Tennessee is trying to ban no gender affirming care, no matter how minor the intervention, no gender affirming care for any kids. And the result of that is going to be you're going to have a lot of kids who have gender dysphoria, have no way of addressing it. And of course, their mental health is going to plummet off a cliff. And, suicidal ideation is very high for this group anyway. You're going to increase that. You're going to increase the harm that these people have to feel. Probably going to make it so that some people have to move from one state to another state because they can't get the medicine that they used to get. And it's all because of what is at its core, a religious fundamentalist ideology that says you are not allowed to color outside the lines. You're not allowed. God made a man, God made a woman, you are what you are. That's the end of the conversation. Don't want to hear anything else. Well, these are the same people who were anti-gay not that long ago, and many of them are still anti-gay today. It's just their new obsession is trans people. They think you're a pervert and a degenerate. They don't think it's something that necessitates medical support. And it's really the denial of the whole category and existence of any trans people, and they want to make these people's lives objectively harder. And so, no way the Supreme Court should rule on the side of Tennessee here. It would be crazy. But unfortunately, that is very possible to happen, and I feel for all the trans people who will be negatively impacted by this.
Pretty sad in that, people can't live their damn life. Everyone in this country these days has to have their nose shoved up somebody's ass, And it's like, I remember a time when people just weren't that into digging into people's private lives. But Jesus Christ, today it's like, along with the internet came this need now to know everything everybody's doing, And it's like, why do people need to know? Why do they have to stand in between a neighbor's doctor, and their spouse, their, whoever, or their child? Why do the people have to do that? What gives them the right to intercede between people's health care and the doctor? There is no excuse. There is no permission given to people to do that sort of thing. And yet, for some reason, I think it's like we need to have a law in place in order to stop that, because if there's no law that states specifically that you cannot interfere with another person's health care, people are going to continually get into it. But, if you make a law like that, okay, the Republicans would fight it because they wouldn't want someone to try to stop them, So Rolling Stone has a very lengthy article here about that, and that was published on the 10th. That was yesterday. Okay. And it's entitled, "I'm Worried. Will Democrats let the GOP gut trans health care?" Written by J.L. Hulsman. I'm not going to try to read this whole thing because it's pretty long. I'll try to read parts of it here. Republicans in Washington have vowed to cut off medical treatment for most trans Americans and may try to do so next year once Donald Trump takes over. Democrats in Congress can likely stop it from happening if they stand together and hold the line, but it's unclear if they will. Yeah, you can never depend on the Democrats to come together on a single issue, right? Remember Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema? For the last few years, the GOP has coalesced around an idea that would short-circuit essentially all trans health care in America, banning federal funds from going to businesses that provide health care specific to changing one's sex or gender identity, including hormones and surgeries. It would essentially signal to the private sector that if it wants federal dollars, it needs to stay away from sex or gender-affirming care and bow down to right-wing pundits who aim to, in their own words, quote, eradicate, unquote, and, quote, erase, unquote, this form of healthcare. So they're going to blackmail people here. Language in House Republicans' most recent funding bill for the Health and Human Services Department would do just that. Ban money from any federal program to entities that do social transitioning or drugs and surgery for gender dysphoria. Gender dysphoria is the specific diagnosis doctors use to justify those medical interventions. This legislation has not gotten any vote yet and would need to be reintroduced next Congress to be considered. But it has been a top priority for Republican lawmakers in the House, and Trump himself has promised he'd ask Congress, quote, to permanently stop federal taxpayer dollars from being used to promote or pay for these trans procedures, unquote. You can hear all his promises on trans health care in the short campaign video, which they got a link to, a hyperlink right in the article. Bans like these can lead to private sector discontinuing behaviors altogether. And once they are in place, they are hard to get rid of. The Hyde Amendment, enacted in the 1970s, led to most abortions no longer being performed in hospitals and is continually renewed each year. Let's see. Medical groups and civil rights advocates in D.C. tell Rolling Stone they believe if a Hyde-level ban on federal funding were enacted, many hospitals will simply prioritize federal dollars over continuing the highly specialized form of medical care. So much medicine is performed through hospital systems and universities that this could mean ending access for many. Surgery for many canceled. Hormones treatment canceled. A specialized field of medicine backed by reams of evidence demonstrating its needs and benefits, practice for more than half a century in the U.S. ostracized, suddenly and loudly. It is hard to quantify how painful a funding ban legislation could be to the American trans community, except to say it would almost certainly lead to lost medical care, forced menopause for some who lose hormones, and, in the bleakest scenarios, waves of suicides. Quote, I think if they had to make the choice of do we provide this care and potentially have to close our doors to everybody, they probably won't do it, unquote, says Aza Radix, head of the World Professional Association for Transgender Health. Quote, it's very disturbing. Legislation like this, even if it hasn't passed, creates an environment where people are incredibly afraid. This is the type of issue where people actually feel suicidal. Are we going to see folks dying by suicide because the potentiality of laws like these being passed? Trump, who once said Caitlyn Jenner could use any bathroom at Trump Tower, ran for the Republican nomination this year on a pledge to end any federal government promotion of transition at any age and disqualify hospitals treating trans minors from Medicare and Medicaid. Trump's incoming vice president, J.D. Vance, as a senator, introduced legislation banning federal funds to entities performing trans health care and compared trans people to perverts. Trump's choice to run the Health and Human Services Department, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., has said people may be saying they're trans because of pollution. Oh, God. Because of pollution. One of Trump's top advisors and financial backers, Elon Musk, days ago endorsed throwing doctors who perform trans health care to people under 18 in prison. A leading candidate to run Trump's Federal Trade Commission, Andrew Ferguson, has promised to use the agency to investigate the doctors, therapists, hospitals, and others that perform surgeries and provided hormone medications to children and adults. Let's see. Right now, many in the LGBTQ plus advocacy community, as well as some Democratic lawmakers and staff, are quietly terrified that the party might let Republicans enact the ban anyway should they be forced to choose between funding the government or allowing the medical system to continue to provide this care unabated. At a minimum, anxious Democrats and advocates believe that party leaders will capitulate on trans health care coverage if federal funding negotiations on the margins, allowing language that bans government-backed insurance plans from covering these services. This conflict is actually playing out before Trump has even taken office, or the GOP controls the Senate. Democrats just this week compromised on a military authorization bill that will ban TRICARE and other Defense Department health plans from covering care for service members. Service members is trans children, I should say. Representative Adam Smith, the top Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee, said he may vote against a procedural rule allowing for passage of the overall bill because of that language. Stopping any sort of trans health care funding ban would almost certainly require all Democrats to stand as a bloc. If six Senate Democrats sided with Republicans to pass a funding bill with the ban language, it would overcome the legislative filibuster. To sample how vulnerable Senate Democrats might feel about this subject, Rolling Stone asked the 13 Democrats up for re-election in the midterms for comment on whether they supported the Republican language. We heard back from 3. Senators Cory Booker of New Jersey, Chris Coons of Delaware, and Jeff Merkley of Oregon, all of whom say they are opposed to banning federal funds to businesses performing trans health care. We did not hear from many senators up for re-election whose states have been competitive in the last decade. John Hickenlooper of Colorado, Jeanne Shaheen of New Hampshire, Gary Peters of Michigan, Mark Warner of Virginia, John Ossoff of Georgia, and Tina Smith of Minnesota. Notably, the top Democrat on the Senate Appropriations Committee, Patty Murray, has been one of the few lawmakers to forcefully say Democrats should not abandon trans people. Quote, Democrats absolutely do not need to sacrifice trans people's rights, or anyone else's rights for that matter, to win elections, unquote, Murray said in a statement provided to trans rights activist Aaron Reed. Yeah, okay. There's a lot more. That's only half of what that I read to you here. Okay, so you get the picture here. It's really, like I said, it's sad that, you know, we're going to have a government now that's going to have microscopes in everybody's personal life, and that's not right. Okay, I'm sorry, but you know, when people have medical care, you don't have a right to pick and choose what they're allowed to have. Okay, because every person is different, and to make black and white laws like bans, because bans are black and white, it's a bludgeon basically. Federal laws are always built that way. They can't be scalpels, because a law is a law. It never takes into account the different nuances of the population out there and the shades of gray of individual circumstances. Okay, so an outright ban on something is just being a prick about the whole idea about trans people altogether. They just don't want to deal with it, period. And they don't think people should allow any recognition of transgenderism in this country. They don't want to hear it. They don't believe it. They think it's a mental disease. They think that, you know, these people are you know, some of that it's just made up. Okay, I mean, that's the way they felt about gay people in the beginning, that they didn't believe that there was, you know, that was something that was a reality. They thought that was just people pretending or something, or a mental problem. Okay, and that's what they're doing now. Okay, and it's crazy that, you know, they didn't learn anything the first time around, and they're trying this shit again. They want to ban this, they want to ban that, something that goes against their own personal beliefs. All right, and when we talk about personal beliefs, you know, we're talking religion, right? I mean, that's where this is coming from, the Christian conservatives. And, you know, those people, by and large, are most anti-Christian people you could ever meet. Okay, because look, I mean, you look at, you know, the people in these evangelical Christians, okay, because they speak the loudest, and usually the loudest ones in those places are the ones hiding a lot of trouble, okay. But these people are the ones that shout, you know, ban this, ban that, you know, and they get everybody clapping and applauding that in their sermons. And so they go out there and they start pushing that because, hey, you know, we were told that that's the way it has to be. And I feel like, you know, that's, you know, the blind leading the blind. But they also do it, a lot of times they do this to parishioners or whoever because of the money. I mean, if you look at these big fucking churches in this country, okay, they're big because they get a lot of fucking money. Okay, they're making a lot of goddamn money, and so, you know, if you think that these people, they built this thing on faith and it's all about religion and stuff, you know, you'll be sadly mistaken. Okay, a lot of these religions are filthy rich. All right, and what do they do for the people who in need that live all around these places? Nada, not a damn thing. They don't do anything. You know, they can't even be a saint about living amongst the poor. Okay, they can't even do that. They can't even practice that. They can't even follow the example that, you know, Jesus of Jesus in the Bible. They can't even follow that example. Okay, they pick and choose things out of there that fit their needs and ways they can twist it, you know, to fit their needs. But they don't follow any of those rules. My God, they just don't. So, you know, this thing here about, you know, forget about transgender people. It's fake. It's all made up. It's they got personality problems or something, and we shouldn't let hospitals waste any money on Again, if you give an inch to these people, they'll take the next step will be gay people. They'll go after the gay people after that. Okay. And say that, you know, these people, we shouldn't cover them either for whatever problems they have that, you know, associated with being gay, okay, because that's not right. That's a mental problem. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you start with one thing and then they come after another and then another and then another, and before you know it, you got bans all across the board on a whole shitload of things that will make the days of the colonial days of America, you know, seem like a picnic. Before you know it, we'd be burning people on the street, for Christ's sake. You know, it's sad that that our country wants to retrace those steps, okay, and go back and relive all those days. It's sad because for some reason along the way, people have fooled a lot of people into thinking that those were good days. That's when this country was at its best, when we were outside burning witches and, you know, whipping black people and stuff. They think that those were good old days, right? You know, I just feel like, you know, the narrative that the Republicans have been putting out, that may sound stupid to you and I, okay, but to Republicans, they see that as great. Yes, let's do that. You know, let's ban these people. Let's get rid of you know, deport all these other people. You know, they're all for all this misery and you know, and exclusionism in this country. They just can't get enough of it because they can't even stand themselves, for Christ's sake. I mean, these people, they just have no tolerance for anything that doesn't look like them. All right, and they grew up that way in broken homes. Okay, a lot of these people with abusive parents, you know, or parents who were constantly, you know, in a state of chaos, and these kids grow up with this shit, and they pick up all this crap out on the streets and stuff, and they grow up with that, and that's instilled in their brain. They raise themselves, and this is this is the end result. You get people suckered into MAGA, and that's what MAGA really is at the end of the day. Is it's all the broken people in our society, the really broken people who have really been from day one stuck in the mud, and they can't get out of it. And they're pissed off at everybody else for trucking along and doing all their things, okay? And they can't. You know, and they can't. They can't get themselves out of this fucking rut they're in. You know, being poor all the time. And it's like, well, you know, what's that? What Republicans used to tell Democrats all to pick yourself up by your bootstraps. Well, you know, here you go. That's how maybe Democrats ought to just start telling them. You know, if you're not happy in this country, don't expect, you know, a handout. Okay. Just talk to any Democrat that's or anybody that's on welfare or getting Social Security. They'll tell you it's just nickels and dimes, man. That's all you're getting, you know, from the government. That's not even enough to live on. So if you think they're getting something so great that you're not, forget it. They're not. They're not getting anything more than, you know, than you are. Okay, and it's sad that, you know, that people look at the world that way through those colored lenses. But that's what we deal with in America. Is we got a whole sub-society in this country that hates its guts. You know, hates themselves, hates everybody that does better than they do. Okay. And yet they'll turn around and they'll support the very institution that keeps them on the bottom, the rich people. Okay, and that's what Trump administration is. It's all made up of billionaires, the very people who have been sticking it to the Republicans all their life. Okay, and they've been told it's the Democrats. Well, the Democrats are always the ones bucking the billionaires and what they've been doing. Okay. But instead, the Republicans think it's the Republican Party that's their salvation when they've been in bed with the billionaires for decades. And it's been that way for, well, since before I was around, I guess. But the truth is in the pudding, and people need to start looking into what you know, the history of their own party and find out what they supported, when they supported it, you know. And if they just follow the dots, they'll see how everything kind of colluded into what we're experiencing right now. The Democrats have tried many times to undo the damage, but every time we vote Republican, we bring that damage back, and it all gets put back into place. So we can't possibly solve all these problems Republicans constantly bitch about if we keep putting the Republican Party back in there to keep making more of a mess. I'm hoping that one day they'll wake up and understand that, but Christ, if I could figure that out. Anyway, let's go to commercial break. We'll be right back.
This is me.
This is me.
This is me!
This is me.
I'm Alex Curtis. I'm a lobsterman in Maine, and this is me.
I'm Ruth McLaughlin, and this is me.
I'm Eric Hopkins. I'm an artist, and this is me.
This
is me.
Me.
This is me.
This is me.
This is me.
At the end of the journey, the main thing is you, original.
stupid are the people of Iowa? How stupid are the people of the country?
We have people that are stupid. There's something wrong with them. And there's something wrong with her, too. She's slow, low IQ. She's a low IQ individual. Low IQ individuals. Well, you know, you think they're stupid, and they are really pretty dumb. Stupid. She didn't know where the hell she was going. Does she drink? Is she on drugs? Some of the dumbest people I've ever met in my life. A terrible, stupid person. And he's stupidly, because he's a stupid guy, too. He's a stupid son of a bitch. We have a guy who's a dumb son of a bitch.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay?
The Democrats say, please don't call them animals. They're humans. I said, no, they're not humans. They're not humans. They're animals. Root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country.
But do you believe in punishment for abortion? Yes or no, as a principle? There has to be some form of punishment. For the woman? Yeah, it has to be some form.
Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it. You know, when the guns are trained on her face. Now, we're a failing country. We are a failing nation. We are a nation in decline. We are a nation in decline. We are a failed nation. The American dream is dead.
Hello, I'm Patrick Stewart. I believe in helping people in crisis, whether they are from Lebanon, Ukraine, Gaza, Sudan, or any troubled area around the world. I ask you to join me in supporting the International Rescue Committee's life-changing work. The IRC is on the front lines of humanitarian crises, and IRC teams stay on the ground as long as they are needed, so displaced people can rebuild their lives. Your support today matters. It can provide medicine, emergency food, critical supplies, and many life-changing programs. It is a gift of hope when families need it most. I've seen the difference caring people like you can make. So please, if you can, make a gift right now.
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country. And some people don't. People start pollution. People can stop it. Write for Pollution Booklet, Box 1771, Radio City Station, New York.
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it. It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
And so, there's this other article here from USA Today that is basically a letter to MAGA, which I think you'll find kind of amusing. It's an op-ed piece written by Rex Hupke, and it's entitled, Hey MAGA voters, you've been had. Trump's plans for the economy may ruin you. President-elect Donald Trump cares deeply about the forgotten men and women of the MAGA movement, the regular folks who believe wealthy elites have made America decidedly not great. So I'm sure those forgotten men and women are thrilled to know Trump has stocked his upcoming administration with enough billionaires and multi-millionaires to, as The Guardian put it recently, quote, form a soccer team, unquote. That's right. Axios reported last week that including Trump himself, the administration-to-be is already staffed with 14 billionaires. The list includes Linda McMahon as Education Secretary, Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy as Government Efficiency Overseers, Howard Lutnick as Commerce Secretary, and billionaire hedge fund manager Scott Bessent as Treasury Secretary. I'm sure these down-to-earth billionaires care deeply about the forgotten men and women of MAGA who put Trump in office. Surely they're in no way, quote-unquote, elite, aside from perhaps owning an island or maybe occasionally hunting poor people for sport on said island. Trump is surrounding himself with non-elite billionaires who care. Forbes reported in 2021 that President Joe Biden's cabinet had a net worth of about $188 million. The Guardian puts the net worth of Trump's gang thus far at more than $300 billion. If you believe in math, it's a staggering sum, about 2,000 times the wealth of those in the Biden administration. So, you know, regular folks, the kind who undoubtedly can relate to the day-to-day needs of Americans, the sort who regularly go to grocery stores, which they refer to as, quote, commoner slop distribution centers, unquote, the kind who would never want to harvest the blood of young people in a narcissistic quest for eternal life. There's no way billionaire businessmen like Musk and Ramaswamy would do anything that helps the rich at the expense of hard-working Americans. They wrote recently in the Wall Street Journal that they will be, quote, taking aim at the $500 billion plus in annual federal expenditures that are unauthorized by Congress, unquote. And yes, that could include things like the Department of Veterans Affairs Medical Services, billions of dollars in funding for education and housing, and the Head Start program. But I'm 100% sure we can trust these billionaires because they're with Trump. And Trump is clearly anti-elite, as the conservative Heritage Foundation trumpeted after the election, quote, with Trump's win, ordinary Americans declared independence from the elites, unquote. And Fox Business host Stuart Varney said after Trump won, quote, the elites have been living in a bubble. Trump just burst it, unquote. Huzzah! Take that, elites. Now please stand back while regular guy billionaire Donald Trump installs a phalanx of other billionaires who will, in a totally non-elite way, lower their own taxes while taking away government services that many forgotten men and women in MAGA rely on for little things like continuing to live. Consider this. Trump has repeatedly talked about how much he likes tariffs, and how, as soon as he takes office, he's going to tariff the daylights out of the other countries like China and Mexico. Economists, probably elites, say the cost of tariffs will get passed along to American consumers. They say that because it's exactly what will happen. But Trump, the everyman, has long denied that reality, convincing the forgotten men and women of the middle class he's an economic wizard, and this will all work out great for them. On NBC's Meet the Press on Sunday, Trump was asked if he can, quote, guarantee American families won't pay more, unquote, under his tariff plan. Trump, the billionaire, said, quote, I can't guarantee anything. I can't even guarantee tomorrow, unquote. You see, Trump cares about American families to not guarantee anything. So don't worry, forgotten men and women of MAGA. Be confident that Trump and Musk and Ramaswamy and McMahon and Lutnick and all the other totally trustworthy and altruistic non-elite billionaires know what's good for you, because you're about to get it, regardless. Yeah, a lot of truth in the sarcasm there. You know, our country spent over $4.5 billion for elections, but they were all private donations. We should give all the candidates a specific amount of money, and that is that, you know, when they do these things. You know, and ending Citizens United certainly would be a good step in the direction of trying to get rid of that money out of politics. You know, the fact that we got billionaires of that caliber in the Trump administration, I mean, how the fuck does anyone believe that these people give two shits about you, me, okay? And even the MAGA people that voted for them. I mean, come on. You're talking about people that they would run over with their fucking limos if they saw you on the street and get away with doing it. Okay, you're just the ants at the picnic. They don't care. They only wanted your vote, and that's what they got. So now forget it. MAGA, you can take your hats off now. Trump doesn't want nothing to do with you. Okay, all of you people are clinging to those hats. Okay, take them off now. Take the bumper stickers off your car. Take the flags off your vehicle, your trucks, and all that shit. Okay, Trump doesn't want to see you, doesn't want to hear you, doesn't want to smell you. Okay, you're nothing to him. And you're nothing to his billionaire friends. They got what they wanted from you, and now they're happy. So now what they're going to do is going to hurt the country as a whole, okay? And, you know, the Democrats will suffer, and so will you. We're all going to be in the same fucking boat now. I mean, that's the only thing we could say is going to happen to all of us in another Trump administration, is that we're all going to be suffering in the same fucking boat. And he'll be riding on a fucking yacht while our boat is sitting here sinking. So I just, you know, it makes me think about Bernie Sanders and all the stuff that he'd been saying over the years about this particular day coming. All right. He was so right. He was so fucking right. You know, he warned us that if we didn't change direction, that we would end up right where we are today. Okay, right now. And we still ain't listening. And Democrats still laugh at him. They still don't care about what he says. And that's going to hurt them in the end, okay? Their arrogance of not heeding a warning from a guy who's never changed his fucking story, has remained consistent about the solutions to these problems. He has always been on the ball with this, and the Democrats don't like that. Why? Because a lot of Democrats, you know, they're on the take. They're on the fucking take. And there's a lot of other reasons, but you know, the thing is Bernie was right. He's right, and we're going to find out just how right, you know, his prediction is going to be. Now that Trump and everything that we hope wouldn't happen is going to happen next year when he takes the oath. We're all going to find out just what it means to be in the hands of the rich in this country, okay? We thought we had it bad, okay, before. No. That first presidency with Donald Trump is going to seem like such a happy memory compared to what we're going to be going through with him the second time. In fact, if we survive, we're going to look at the Biden years as the golden age of America, because we were progressing, we were coming out of darkness, and by Jesus, Trump said, fuck that, we're going right back into the tunnel. You know, we're going right back into the tunnel. I don't give a fuck about what Biden tried to do. I'm undoing it. We're going right back to where we were. That's his fucking promise to you, MAGA, is that he's going to turn this boat right around and we're going to head right back into that fucking tunnel. That's where we're going. That's where we're fucking going. All right, so that's it for today. Hope everybody has a great rest of the week. So subscribe, comment, and share. And keep your ears open for health-related matters. and watch each other out there on the roads and stuff while you're driving and shopping. So drive with care, and I'll talk to you guys later, so take care, buddy.